Welcome back to the West Ham Voice. Thank you for joining me. Now, before I do the review of the West Ham v Everton game, let's update you on the latest. And I'm sure you've probably already heard by now that the FA have finally issued a statement clearing Lucas Paqueta of the 4 spot fixing charges that were levied against him. Now, I reported this about a week or so ago. I was getting a bit worried that the official statement might never come. But it has. The FA have said publicly now that Paqueta is being cleared of the more serious charges of spot fixing, but the player has been found guilty of 2 lesser charges related to withholding information. Now, this withholding information goes back to when Paqueta was asked to hand in his mobile phone. He did so initially, and then after he received it back from the FA, he bought a new phone, discarded the old one. And then when the FA asked for the phone back, he didn't have it available. So they found him guilty of that. It's a minor charge, it's a lesser charge, but, it's still likely to produce some kind of penalty. Now, it's probably likely to be a fine, a hefty fine. The FA do have it within their power to either suspend the player or even ban him, but that's deemed highly unlikely. So the more serious charges, he's now been cleared officially. And the lesser charges of withholding information, he has been found guilty, and we're just going to have to wait and see what sort of penalty he'll be levied with. But on the whole, the player is now free, and I know what a lot of people are saying. That now that he's free, of course, we're going to go and sell him, or the Paqueta, or the player wants to leave. But from what I understand, none of that is happening now. Of course, if a team comes in and says, "Here's 60 million pounds on the table," what would we do then? I don't know. But until that time happens, Paqueta is free to play his game, and he's still a West Ham player. Okay. For what it's been worth, I've stayed up to watch the 2 preseason friendly games that West Ham have been involved in over in America over this past week. And from what I can see, it's all been pretty good. It's all been okay. Now, I thought of the 4 teams that are involved, and to be honest, I thought at this, where we stand at the moment, I thought West Ham would be the whipping boys, but it's Everton who are likely to receive that accolade. Now, I thought Bournemouth looked very good until they got trounced by Man United 4-1 in the game straight after our game against Everton. Man United didn't look great against us, but they turned on the style against Bournemouth. As for ourselves, we've had 2 fairly decent games where Graham Potter is making sure that just about every player who's out on the US tour is going to get some game time. Now, in the first half, Graham Potter named a side, which was a 3-5-2 formation with Wes Foderingham in goal. Defence consisted of Carl Walker-Peters and Malik Diouf, who provided the width. And in between, the 3 centre-backs were Kalen Casey with Dinos Mavropanos and Max Kilman either side of him. Our midfield was James Ward-Prowse, Freddie Potts and Irving, with Paqueta supporting Callum Marshall up front. Now, the only players I've said, is trying to give everyone game time. The only players so far who haven't got any game time are our 2 academy goalkeepers, Lanre Awesu and Finley Herrick, as well as defender Aridas Golombekis and midfielder Mohamedou Kante. Perhaps, maybe, in the final game against Bournemouth on Sunday, we might get to see a few of these academy players, even if it's just for a few minutes. Now, what I saw against Everton on Wednesday night gave me quite a bit of hope. And at the time, gave me a little bit of concern as well. And I'll explain why. Now, let's first deal with the positives from the game. And there are several that I'm going to cover. Now, for me, 2 big headline positives is firstly, how coherent and united that this team is looking. It looks like we're all playing for the same cause. There's a feeling of a huge bond between the players, and the players all look extremely happy at the moment. Now, the other huge positive for me, by the way, if you look at Coach Bruno's post-match interview, he talks about the togetherness and what West Ham are trying to do, trying to bond the players closer together. Now, the other huge benefit for me, the other huge positive for me, is how well all the academy players are performing. Now, I was pleased to see three academy players in the starting lineup, which included, as I've already said, Kalen Casey, Freddie Potts, and Callum Marshall. Potts and Marshall, I think, did exceptionally well. Now, Potts does look every bit the confident central midfielder that we know he can be. He was dictating play, demonstrating his excellent passing range, short 1-2 passes, keeping the ball moving forward, plus the attempt to get players in behind defenders. And not all these passes succeeded, but you can see his intent and the fact that he was trying these things, given that, a lot of young players who are trying to impress sometimes might just want to play it safe and try and impress in that way. But Potts didn't do that. He showed his range of passing. He showed his quality in defensive midfield. He showed his quality in getting forward. And I think he did extremely well. Now, the only disappointing thing for me is that he only got to play a half. I would have liked to see him play maybe a bit longer. As for Callum Marshall, he looked really sharp up front, giving Graham Potter even more to think about when it comes to our striker options. Now, look, I don't think Callum Marshall is a nailed-on starter, but he could make for a very good impact sub in the first team squad. He had an excellent chance in the first minute of the game when a poor back pass gave him a golden opportunity to score, but the Everton keeper pulled off a decent save. But it was Marshall's movement and anticipation which impressed me. Despite his small frame, he's a nuisance up front and can cause real problems to defenders. I like him, but still not sure whether he's going to be retained or sent out on loan, probably to a championship team next season. I would prefer that we keep him, even if he's a third choice striker. I think he'd be a great advantage to us. Um, Same for Potts, really. He served his apprenticeship well, when he did his two loan spells out from West Ham. And I believe he too can make a valuable contribution to this West Ham squad. Again, not necessarily a starter, but it gives us options. Potts gives us options in midfield. He looks very, very comfortable in possession of the ball. Now, what's impressed me in both games, the Man United game and the Everton game, is our control of the game. We've been setting the tempo of both games. And as Potter has stated after the game, we have worked hard. The team has worked hard in finding ways to break down teams when the onus is on West Ham to do so, to be more creative. There's a spirit within the team that wasn't there last season. And despite being far from the finished article, I'll get onto the negatives in a moment. Don't worry. There is something about West Ham that looks controlled. It looks measured, not too panicky. And dare I say it, players do look like they're enjoying themselves. Sure, it's pre-season. But it's all about setting the tone for the season ahead. Now, other positives. Lucas Paqueta himself, or Lucas Paqueta himself, looks to be a player who's had the weight of the world lifted off his shoulders. And now that the FA announcement has been made, it's no surprise that he's looking livelier. There's almost a sense of his arrogance, his swagger back into his play, which can only bode well for West Ham. Plus, he's getting on the score sheet fairly regularly. I think he's adapting to the different positions that Potter has asked him to play in, and he's adapting really well. Now, for some of these preseason friendlies, he's played in more advanced roles, and in others, like the second half against Everton, he played in a deeper role, controlling the game from a deeper midfield position, and it's paid off. In the first half, when he played further up front, the goalie error led to Paqueta pouncing to get West Ham back into the game. We were 1-0 down at the time. Then for some of the games, like I said, he's playing a deeper role, and he looks assured. He looks comfortable again. He looks like he's not trying to do. He can do the flash stuff, but he can do it at the right time rather than sort of try and pull them off at the wrong times. Nicholas Fulkrug is also looking very sharp. He looks slimmer, fitter, and above all, also a lot happier as well. The goal he scored in the second half was one of those well done moments, to be honest with you. Not only did he steal the ball from Paqueta's feet, he carried the ball forward, he looked menacing, and that low strike just outside the 18-yard box was excellent. The keeper was never going to get to that. If he gives us those moments in the season ahead, then I think we're going to be very happy with Fulkrug. We can, if we keep him fit, we've got a very good striker on our hands. In the second half, Potter made a number of changes, and he seemed slightly to tinker with formation. I initially found it difficult to determine whether he went with a back four or not, because it looked as if a Gerd was playing in a left back role with Wan-Bissaka playing as right back. But as the game settled, the formation looked more like a 3-4-3, a 3-5-1-1 sort of formation, with Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Luis Guilherme offering the width. Now, I was disappointed, as I said, to see Marshall and Potts taken off, as they were probably some of the better players in the first half. But this preseason is as much about getting players fit as it is about looking for different ways of playing, different formations, and so on. Rodriguez came on for Potts. Fulkrug came on for Marshall. Bowen also came on, meaning that Paqueta, as I've mentioned, was dropped slightly deeper. And Todibo and Agurd came on for Kilman and Casey. Now let's carry on with the positives. Like I said, I will get to the negatives in a moment. And I know many people won't want to hear this, but with a back three of Dinos, Todibo, and Agurd, we look really, really comfortable. Dare I say this? And I think I will. And you won't agree with me, but that's your call. We look better in defense when Max Kilman was not in it. And it looked as if Mavropanos was relishing being in the center of a back three with Agurd on one side and Todibo on the other. He looked really in control. Also, we've got to give credit to Luis Guilherme, who was again asked to play an unfamiliar role out on the left as a wing back, but he acquitted himself really well. I think the only thing I see in Guilherme's game is that he shouldn't rush the game when he gets into good goal scoring opportunities. And he ought to look up a little bit more, because sometimes there's an option that, because he's so determined to try and score, there's a different option for him that might be better for the team. He'll learn that. He's learning, but he's looking more and more confident as time goes by. But you can see what options Potter will have on that side, on the left side, when Diouf is fully match fit and when Crescencio Somerville returns from injury. Then we won't need Guilherme to be playing on that left-sided role. He'll be more of a backup to Bowen on the right side. Overall, our play was sharper. We were getting to those 50-50 challenges more often than we did last season. Something that was kind of lacking in our game. We controlled most of the game with our passing, our tempo, and we were far more direct and forward-thinking than last season at any time. So there's an awful lot to be positive about, to take from the two games so far in America. But what about the negatives? Because there are a few. It's not all rosy. And I'm sure by now, most of you will be steaming at the thought that I've only got my claret and blue tinted glasses on. Let's start, of course, with the goalie situation. As much as Areola is struggling at the moment, with the greatest of respect to him, Wes Foderingham is not our answer as an alternative. And we really do have to address the goalie situation as soon as possible. Now, whether it be Hermansen or Suzuki or Cooper or any other goalie that we're currently linked to, we really do have to get a goalkeeper in who's going to be challenging for that first team spot. It's really an important area to sort out. Now, the goal that Everton scored was soft, and Foderingham should have really had done better in trying to save it. And then later in the game, he came off his line to punch the ball clear, completely mistimed it. And I did mention the other day whether we have an academy. I asked the other day whether we've got an academy keeper who might be a better option, even as a number 3. But with Christian Heggie not on tour, or it certainly doesn't look like he is, perhaps, I don't know. Some of the other goalkeepers that we've got, I know Mason Terry is just gone out on loan again. to Braintree, which is disappointing for me. I would like to see him go out to, well, no disrespect to Braintree, but to a team in maybe Championship or League One or whatever. But there are other keepers that are out there, like Awesu, like Herrick, etc. But I'm not sure that any of them are really ready in order to take on that third goalie mantle at this moment in time. So it's Foderingham at the moment. We do need to bring in, however, a second goalie or a goalie that's going to be competing and challenging Areola for that number one spot. Kalen Casey, it was his poor pass which built up to the Everton goal. And he, with the greatest of respect to him as well, doesn't really look quite ready to step up into the senior squad. We haven't seen much of Walker Peters or Diouf as yet, but it's early days. They're still acclimatizing, they're still settling in, they're still getting match fit. So I'm expecting more from them as time goes by. And as we're all aware, our central midfield really does need something different. Now, whilst Alvarez is likely to be back probably for the Bournemouth game on Sunday, we've still got Somerville due to come back as well, but he's more of a wide player. And despite all the central defenders that we currently have at the club, we still need something different. We still need that attacking box-to-box midfielder. Rodriguez for me just isn't strong enough to control the midfield. Potts actually looked far more assured and far more effective than Rodriguez did. James Ward-Prowse and Souček are okay, but that's it. They're okay. And we need more dynamism and pace in the heart of that midfield, as it would allow players like Paqueta to be even more effective, knowing that the likes of Alvarez and a box-to-box midfielder will give him the freedom to be more expressive. Now, I haven't seen anything in the two games in America so far to suggest that we've got all our central midfield solutions sorted. As I mentioned, I think Potts looks very decent, and even Lewis Orford, who came on and showed glimpses of what he's capable of, is still not quite ready yet. But with Orford and Preston Fearon the other day, in the game against Man United, they're both excellent young prospects, but maybe a season or two away from really making an impact in the first team. I think they would both benefit from a season out on loan. That's Fearon and Orford, hopefully to a championship side where they can really cut their teeth playing regular first team football. Now, late on in the game, we picked a couple of knocks. Dinos was pointing to the back of his knee, and when Paqueta came off, he seemed to imply that he may have had a niggle with his hamstring, which serves to remind us that we are only a few injuries away from struggling again. Hence, even more need to go and get ourselves at least a central midfielder in order to be able to give us options in that part of the park. Scarles and Orford came on to replace both Dinos and Paqueta, and within seconds of coming on, after great play by Guilherme, Orford, his excellent ball control, opened an opportunity for him to have a strike, and the Everton keeper pulled off a great save. Now, the way Orford moved immediately reminded me of Manuel Lanzini. There was that Lanzini-esque sort of skill about him. So there's a lot of positives. There are still some negatives, the ones that we already know. We need a goalie. We need another attacking midfielder. We do need a backup striker as well, even though Marshall, I think, is good. And I guess this is what we're now focusing on in the transfer market. As I mentioned in the show that I did earlier today, we have bids in. My understanding is that we are very interested in Jacob Ramsey of Aston Villa. There's talk about Josh Brownhill. I've seen your comments about, a lot of you don't really fancy Brownhill. Not many people have mentioned about whether they fancy Jacob Ramsey coming to the club. There's still talk about Hermansen coming, but as I mentioned again earlier this morning, that Hermansen has only just recovered from an injury. And maybe we're just waiting to make sure that he's fully fit before we make that move. So there is movement. But I think, like I've said, overall for me, the two games so far have impressed me because of the dynamism that's in the squad, the bond that you can see, the united sort of togetherness of the team, and of course the fact that we are now really giving our academy players the platform to demonstrate what they're capable of. I still think I still think at this moment in time, it's just Potts that's going to make the senior squad in addition to Scarles next season from the academy. But what a pleasure it's been to look to see what Orford, Casey, Marshall, Fearon, and all the others can do in this team. Long may it rain. We've got the game, one more game at Bournemouth against Bournemouth on Sunday, and then we're back in London and we're leading up to the game against Lille at the London Stadium. Looking forward to that. I'll be back again soon with further transfer news, I'm sure. But in the meantime, thank you for watching and listening. Do hit the like button, become a subscriber if you've yet to subscribe, and I'll see you all very soon.